Hello, welcome to a new series called The Godzilla Wheel, which is totally not a ripoff of another show, and totally not an excuse to delay Persona 5 Unseen Content Part 2. Something I love a lot but don't talk about often enough is the Godzilla franchise. I've seen pretty much every Godzilla movie released with very few exceptions, which are on my watch list anyways. There are a lot of Godzilla movies. Which one is the best Godzilla movie? You may think that the answer is easy, the original. But I didn't ask what's the best movie in the Godzilla franchise. I asked what's the best Godzilla movie. Because I don't rate these movies with the same criteria as I do with other films. And in this series I'm going to try and find out what the best Godzilla film is, what the worst Godzilla film is, among with the best and worst of certain aspects and criteria. I'll be rating these movies with my custom kaiju calculator. The three criteria are kaiju/SFX, kaiju hijinks, and overall film quality. Kaiju/SFX rates the kaiju themselves from their design and personality, along with the quality of the movie's special effects, including the kaiju suits. These are usually worth about 5 points each, but sometimes the kaiju designs can affect the SFX, so they're one category. Kaiju hijinks was originally kaiju action, but there are things that they do that I wouldn't really call action that I do want to include. This category is basically now what do the kaiju actually do in this movie, not just including fights and trampling buildings. Overall movie quality is pretty self-explanatory. The best Godzilla movies are usually also good movies. The monsters might be really cool, but if the rest of the movie is boring as sin, then that should be reflected in the score. So how do we decide what movies to review? Well, I find that when a Godzilla marathon is done chronologically, then it becomes a little redundant after a while. In order to keep things fresh, we will be deciding what movie to review randomly. In the random pool, we have every single officially released Godzilla film, and again, to keep things fresh, we have every single Gamera film, on top of a ton of other Toho kaiju films like the Mothras, Rodan, and some more out there ones like Space Amoeba and the Mysterians. Also, Pulgasari. Now, you may be thinking, but Dafflemet, if so many of these movies don't have Godzilla in them, shouldn't this be called the Kaiju Wheel and not the Godzilla Wheel? That's a good question. Anyways, onto the wheel. Without further ado, the first movie to be featured on the Godzilla Wheel will be Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is a 1964 kaiju film directed by Ishiro Honda and the fifth in the Godzilla franchise. It is notable for introducing Rodan to the Godzilla franchise and for being the first ever appearance of King Ghidorah, as well as the first time Godzilla himself was on the side of good, albeit reluctantly. The film clocks in at just over 90 minutes and is the 7th highest rated Godzilla movie on Letterboxd at an average rating of 3.4 out of 5. Kaiju/SFX. Ghidorah is already off to an early start in this category as it features 4 kaiju. Now it seems a little less special when all these ones specifically are together, but for 1964, this was really cool. Plus, Ghidorah is brand new. They really do a great job of making Ghidorah feel like a real threat. It's clear that in a one-on-one fight with any of the monsters, he would win. I won't really talk about how he's much more powerful in this movie specifically until the next section, but he really is a force to be reckoned with. Ghidorah himself is actually a marvel of special effects, needing a small army to control him. I'm conflicted about the other kaiju suits and puppets. Mothra looks really good and isn't that much different than her appearance in Mothra vs. Godzilla, but Rodan looks kinda bad. He's not terrible, but the head especially looks super fake. Like he's a Rodan toy. See, what I mean when I say that kaiju can affect the SFX? He's actually pretty powerful in this movie. Mothra actually gets her ass kicked and not him. Godzilla in this movie is weird. The suit itself is passable, but I don't know how I feel about this design. This early in the franchise, I haven't really nailed down his look yet. Something about him just looks off. If I had to say what, I think that his design should be more animalistic, if that makes sense. As for the rest of the special effects, they're pretty good. A couple of the miniatures look like, well, miniatures, but most of them are pretty good. A special effect rarely seen with movies with the twin fairies are large props. Usually the actors are just superimposed over normal objects, but they actually went out of their way to make large props for the scenes, and it's a very nice touch. The only notable thing I can think of is its fake-looking airplane explosion. Overall, I give Ghidorah a 6 out of 10 in terms of kaiju and special effects. It's very close to a 7 with some highlights like King Ghidorah, but other than that, there isn't anything that's really impressive, and even stuff that brings it down like Rodan. Kaiju hijinks. This is Ghidorah's chance to really improve its score, and I hate to say this, but not starting good. There's barely any kaiju in the first 2 acts. Mothra makes an appearance, but does he do anything? And Ghidorah is inside this meteor the whole time. There's some stuff though, like the fact that Ghidorah's meteorite is super magnetic for some reason. I can't think of any Godzilla movie where Ghidorah is magnetic, but go off, I guess. Most notably, Rodan breaks out of a volcano, which is pretty cool, although slightly ruined by the Rodan puppet or suit or whatever. When we get into the third act is when it starts to get awesome. Ghidorah's introduction is badass and a perfect way to introduce his character. He retiles his pagoda just by flying over it, and he really fucks it up. And he does it with ease. The fight between Godzilla and Rodan is pretty good, as is the fight between Ghidorah and the other monsters. Although the thing about the fight scenes in this movie is that they cut a little bit too soon, which is a shame because all the monsters use pretty unorthodox moves. They're throwing rocks, they're biting each other, they use their tails. Rodan drops Godzilla's dick onto an electrical pole and then he gets zapped there again. It isn't just men in rubber suits wrestling, they really get creative with it. But whoever was editing the movie just cut too fast. In order to get Godzilla and Rodan to fight Ghidorah, Mothra has to talk to them. Yes, actually talk to them. The twin fairies translate, but they just straight up stop beating each other up and just have a normal argument. Apparently Godzilla and Rodan are super stubborn. See, this is why it needed to be a kaiju hijinks and not kaiju action. This definitely is an action, but I have to include it. It's so stupid that it's great. I give Ghidorah an 8 out of 10 for kaiju hijinks. When it gets going, it's great. It just takes a while to get there. Overall, movie quality. So basically, the plot of this movie is that there's this princess from a made-up country, and people are trying to assassinate her to take the throne or something, but she gets possessed by a woman from Venus and jumps out of her plane before it gets blown up. Apparently, she survives the fall by going through a rift in dimensions. No, you don't get to see her do it, and no, dimensional rifts are never mentioned in this movie again. So now that Venus lady is in Japan, she says that the world's going to end, and that her predictions about kaiju become true. So they have to get Mothra to convince Godzilla and Rodan to fight Ghidorah. Also, she reveals that Ghidorah destroyed Venus, and it takes 90 minutes for all that to happen. There's a lot of scenes which don't really advance the plot. The story is stupid and not even silly and fun stupid, just stupid. The woman from Venus gives a super wooden performance which is supposed to show she's possessed, but just makes the scenes that could be fun boring. The plot does its job, but barely. There isn't really any interesting filmmaking. I give the overall movie quality a 3 out of 10. The final score for Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster is 17 out of 30. It was enjoyable, and at the end of the day I would recommend it, but I wouldn't judge you if you just fast-forwarded for the first 2 acts. Enjoy that number 1 spot, you hopefully won't keep it long. And the next film for the Godzilla Wheel is